It's the most popular news segment on the show. It's Right On with our friend Pierre LeBrun, who just got back from the NHL's Board of Governor meetings in New York City. And I saw you posted on X, Pierre, that you ran into Cam Neely, and big surprise, he didn't have anything else to say about the Jeremy Swayman situation because he'd already poured gasoline on the fire with his comments earlier in the week. But I also noticed that the Bruins claimed Yuri Patera off waivers from the Canucks, so perhaps another little shot across the Swayman-Lewis Gross bow. Where are you seeing these negotiations at this point?
Well, I will say I was hoping Cam Neely had more to say, and the way I tried to hook him into further commenting is that I said, "Hey, Lewis Gross, the agent, refuted what you said. So what do you say to that?" But he was very polite about it, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm done commenting." But I will say I also inferred into the way he handled that with me that he stands by what he said about the $64 million. So. And I think where that's at, Jay, is that, $64 million is on the table. I think what Lewis Gross was cleverly pointing out is that it wasn't on the table until they heard it like the rest of us.
Right.
But either way, that could be semantics because it is on the table. And listen, the two sides continue to talk, which is the positive part. Despite all the emotion of this week, it's not at a complete standstill, I don't think. But, separate for a moment the financial resolution that needs to happen. I mean, at some point they'll find the number, I think. But Jeremy Swayman, I think, probably is a little hurt right now, yeah. and the reparation of that relationship is now part of this thing as well, not just the actual contract negotiation. So I think it gets done eventually, believe it or not, despite all the drama of this week. But how the player feels about things will be interesting.
Let's talk about Connor McDavid. He's already said he doesn't want to talk about a potential contract extension after this season. But you had a chance to talk to the Oilers team president, Jeff Jackson, who's in such a unique situation. He's Connor McDavid's former agent, so he negotiated Connor's last deal on behalf of Connor, and now he will have to negotiate Connor's next deal on behalf of the team. So what did Jeff have to say about the McDavid extension?
Yeah, a deal, by the way, that you may remember, Jay, at the time, Connor McDavid at the last moment said, let's take a bit less than what we agreed to help out the team under the cap. We'll see if that happens again this time around. What Jeff Jackson said a couple things to me when I ran into him at the Board of Governors. And one of them is that, listen, obviously they're confident they have a shot at extending him this summer. Connor McDavid can sign 1 year out as of July 1st, the most important contract negotiation in the entire NHL. But one thing Jeff Jackson tried to caution is that just as Leon Draisaitl eventually signed this summer, late in the summer, if McDavid doesn't sign on July 1st, people should not panic, should not read into that. That this is a process, and they're going to work through it as they do. They have great communication with their captain and franchise player, but if it doesn't happen July 1st, everyone in Oiler Nation should take a deep breath. And I thought that was interesting because he just did it with Draisaitl, so you got to believe that Jeff Jackson understands how this may play out. And he is confident that because the Oilers are a team that are in the mix, that went to the final, that are a contender again, that's the most important thing to Connor McDavid. And when it's time to talk this summer, he feels pretty good about their chances.
I understand you also had a chance to speak with Michael Andlauer, the owner of the Ottawa Senators. And Pierre, as you know, Linus Ullmark has looked absolutely terrific in the preseason for the Ottawa Senators. This seems like a marriage made in heaven. Any chance we have some movement on a potential contract extension for Ullmark?
By the way, I like, from all those bubble teams that are trying to take that next step, Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa, Montreal, Ottawa is the team that I like to make the playoffs. And a lot of it is because of the guy you just mentioned. I think it's incredible how getting saves finally in Ottawa will make a difference for the rest of that team. It seems almost crazy to point that out. But, the Senators want a long-term marriage with this guy. Michael Andlauer basically reiterated, to me publicly what we talked about last week on air, is that they're not rushing into this negotiation. They don't want to pressure Ullmark because they want him to feel at ease in his new surroundings and his new market, his family to be at ease in Ottawa before they get into that conversation with Ullmark. So they're treating this a bit with kid gloves. The time will be right eventually, Ann Lauer said, for Steve Stais to get into this conversation. But right now, it's just about Linus Ullmark feeling happy, feeling comfortable, and getting the season going, and then they'll talk at some point.
You were a plethora of information from the Board of Governors meetings. You also mentioned Tuesday that the NHL is looking at reducing the preseason to 4 games and potentially adding 2 more regular season games to bring the number to 84, which is something you put out there that I've never seen everybody universally agree at TSN on something, but they all did, that this would be a great idea. But my question for you, Pierre, is this something that could actually happen next season?
Well, so here's the thing. I mean, one conversation leads into the other, because this won't happen until there's a new CBA. And so what I would have said to you is that, well, it won't happen for 2 years because the current CBA expires in September 26. Except that Gary Bettman, after the Board of Governors meeting, was so hopeful of where this negotiation might go with the players starting in January that he said, in a perfect world, maybe there's a new CBA extension to announce at the Stanley Cup Final in June.
Wow.
This June.
Wow.
Like, craziness. The reason I mention that now, I know we may get into that, but is that may affect things like what we're talking about, the potential for the schedule to change. And I want to make something very clear. The fact that, I put out there that the league and the PA have had very preliminary talks about, reducing preseason games and maybe extending the regular season 2 games, that's not new. I actually reported this back in July, but I felt the need to reiterate it yesterday, Jay, because I can sense that fans are getting more and more tired of preseason.
Yeah.
And upset over injuries. I mean, Laine, Doughty being the big 2, but you're just sort of holding your breath. I mean, every time the Senators and Habs and Leafs play each other in that triangle rivalry, you're holding your breath to make sure that everyone gets out of that game in one piece. And I personally feel, Jay, that the NHL has outgrown needing 8 preseason, a maximum of 8, some teams per preseason. I've talked to a couple of governors that agreed with me yesterday. I actually have a piece coming out in The Athletic in the next couple of days about that. But the bottom line is, in the next CBA negotiations, the league is going to bring this up. And I think there will be an appetite from the player side to reduce preseason games, maybe to 4, but then extend the regular season by 2. Because at the end of the day, it's revenue. And the players are in the revenue pie with the owners. And if you're losing money on one side, you got to make it up on the other. I hope it happens because, here we are in October. We still haven't started the season,
Yeah.
Jay. Let's drop the puck for real.
Yep.
I mean, come on.
Literally, there's not a single person who disagrees with you on this one, Pierre. What in the world? News, politics, entertainment, sports. Nobody agrees on the same thing. We all agree on this one. It's remarkable, really, when you think about it.
Well, imagine if they added a caveat, the Stanley Cup awarded by May 31st. Wouldn't that be exciting, Jay? But that will not be happening.
Our mutual dream of no hockey in June, it's probably a pipe dream for us. Pierre, I'm going to let you go with this. Your Cowboys beat the Giants last week. They got a big game coming up against the Steelers this weekend. Jerry Jones is showing up at practice in a helicopter like a total baller. They're rumored to be in on Davante Adams at this point. How much better are you feeling about your Cowboys this week than last week when I chatted with you?
Wait, is Davante Adams a pass rusher or a wide receiver? Why are the Cowboys looking into that? They don't have Micah Parsons and they don't have Lawrence now for a number of weeks. I mean, oh my gosh, those injuries. Parsons obviously is a massive injury for the Cowboys. I'm not feeling very confident about that game in Pittsburgh. Really tough place to go steal a road win, but the Steelers aren't very good offensively, so I suspect it'll be a low-scoring game. And the Cowboys have a heck of a field goal kicker, Jay.
Yes, they do.
Aubrey.
Yes, they do. Yeah, a lot of field goal kickers getting their time to shine right now. It's like all the offense is coming off the legs of these guys at this point in the NFL. Pierre LeBrun, always a pleasure to chat with you. I know you're tired. You're doing yeoman's work for us at the Board of Governors meetings, but you took a little time for us. Thanks for this, buddy. Appreciate it.
Never too tired to do this with you, buddy.
When we return, we're going to talk about Pierre's Cowboys with Luke Wilson. I wonder what he has to say about Jerry's helicopter.